Hey there, welcome to the Bronx Buzz, BronxNet's program that talks to reporters and writers and editors and sometimes filmmakers and photographers. And I say that advisedly because in our second segment, we are going to talk to a well known journalist who became a photographer, a photojournalist. We'll do that in our second segment. But in our first segment, we bring on a guest we have not had before. His name is Sam Turvey. He recently retired from the TIAA, which is the Teachers Insurance and Annuity Association of America, where he served as a managing director in the firm's legal department. But he has and had something very direct to say about Penn Station, which is what we're going to talk about. Nice to see you, Sam. Welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So, just a little bit about your background and why you have had particular interest, and on your website and everything, you're really about this Penn Station overhaul. So, what got you from where you are to, or where you were to, being really interested in this project?
Well, I think it's a fewfold. I love New York City. I've lived and worked in every borough. Now I cheated. I was born on Staten Island, so I had a little bit of an advantage on some folks on that. But I also commuted in and out of New York City for a large part of my working life, and found those commutes, whether right through the Port Authority bus terminal or Penn Station, to be soul crushing, particularly when you compare them to Grand Central Station. And when I learned that there was a movement afoot to address Penn Station, I dug in and learned more. And I came to learn that the proposals that were being made, I felt really missed the mark and missed the opportunity to really do great things for the whole region. And I thought, the public was not being heard at the volume that they should be. And I decided, I've done various public-minded work throughout my career, even when working in corporations and the like. I said, I'm going to dedicate myself to this because I think it's the single greatest opportunity or the single greatest land use decision in the New York metropolitan area, probably in a century. And I can
Wow. Frankly, I read the op-ed piece that you did in City Limits, and that's what inspired this conversation. So, of course, I read that, and it got me to do a little research about the project and how it's being planned. Just the thought of moving Madison Square Garden again was really striking to me, especially because I always hailed that project, the where it's at now, as a real victory because the Dolans paid for it all privately, unlike Yankee Stadium and Citi Field and the Meadowlands stadiums that all got all kinds of tax breaks and public money. He paid for it himself, and now you're going to go to. Let's start there. Now you're going to say to Dolan, you got to move, or we're moving it for you after he renovated, and it's really, frankly, very nice inside. So let's start there. Is this realistic that we're going to find another spot for Madison Square Garden?
Well, they could easily find another spot for it, and it has moved 4 times before. And when Marilyn Monroe sings "Happy Birthday" to President Kennedy, it wasn't in that Madison Square Garden. It was up on 8th Avenue, and there's a rail yard site sitting there waiting for it to go over there on the west side. So I'd say a couple of things. One is, look, unlike Yankee Stadium and Shea Stadium, and this is not the Dolan's fault, but Madison Square Garden sits on top of the most important and strategic transit site in New York City. More people go through that site than any other transit site. It's the largest transit hub in the Western Hemisphere. And do you really want this city to have a second-class subterranean, poor subway station type thing there?
Underneath the world's most famous arena.
Well, look, I was Knicks season ticket holder for 30 years, and nobody loves the 2 championship teams more than I do. I saw them play. But I think, the Garden is an interior experience, and it's a Manhattan experience. And so I think as long as it stays in Manhattan, you can replicate the magic of it. Now, when you say he just spent $1 billion on it, well, he took a risk. That's like he doesn't have every right in the world to stay in that location. There are permits and tax breaks that he gets to be there. And he was given 10 years to find another location. He's well connected enough that he said, skip that. I'm going to put $1 billion in the building. And there are people who now argue, both he and on his behalf, that since he spent $1 billion, it shouldn't make him move. Well, that's putting a poison pill out
Interesting.
there to the public. He was supposed to be thinking about moving, and he actually was. I believe, was actually in serious talks with the related people about the Hudson Yards
Right.
location. Governor Hochul came in and is so anxious to get this project running and doesn't want Roth and Ross related over on the west and Roth and the east to be fighting with each other over who gets the benefits of Madison Square Garden. So she
All
put
right.
the whole thing to
Let,
bed.
let,
But that then condemns the commuting population to abasement for another, however many
Fair
decades.
enough. All right. So now let's then you've I believe effectively threw out that consideration that me as a sports fan was very concerned about. The other thing that just shocked me, because just like you said at the beginning, people don't really know what's going on in there. I was really surprised to find that it's not just dealing with Penn Station and, let's say, the post office. This is going to be the whole area is going to be redone. So let's talk about, and the idea of shutting all that down and dealing with everything that goes through there, Macy's across the street and everything else. This is a major thing. What are your main concerns about the proposal as it stands now?
Well, having gone to college in the Bronx and actually having seen Robert Moses speak at Fordham last year, 1979, and having traveled on the Cross Bronx Expressway,
Not very fast.
my major concern is that demolishing the neighborhood that surrounds Penn Station is not how things are done these days. That is very much a throwback to Robert Moses era urban renewal.
Oh.
Declare a neighborhood blighted and run everybody out of town. And it hasn't worked. It's had very deleterious effects, and it's very unfair to the residents that live there, the small businesses that are there, the churches that are there, their Capuchin friars there. And you don't have to do it that way. You can have the best of old and new. The Vornado company that is the principal developer pushing for this, they own plenty of nondescript post-war one-story buildings in the area. If you want to develop them, have at it, but you can leave some of the great things that are there behind, including the people. And if you look at Bryant Park as an example, you have a big Bank of America
Mhm.
tower at one side, you
Right.
have an older hotel on the other side. That area has really, it cleaned up because the park cleaned up. They didn't tear everything down when Bryant Park was a problem and then start over. And I think there's a much more organic, sensitive way you could deal with this community and wind up with the best of both worlds. Tearing everything down and running across Bronx Expressway through it, or that type of urban renewal, it has not worked. It's
Uh,
problematic.
and so, in order to do that, you need a developer or a whole development. I mean, this is not a small thing. It's not a developer. There's going to be a lot of people involved. You need somebody who's sensitive to the nuances of all those things, whether it be businesses, whether it be buildings, et cetera, to really carve out something, as opposed to just say what you said, urban renewal, wipe it out and put up new stuff. Right? Am I understanding
Yes,
that's
yes.
where are we at in terms of let's just say that there are a lot of people, and I haven't measured it. It's not a Bronx issue that I get involved in, but let's say there are a number of people and entities that agree with you. What has to be done now? Is it literally knocking on Governor Hochul's door and saying, look, you better take another look at this? Or is this, to some degree, like so many other developments in New York City, a runaway freight train?
It's a runaway freight train that has been slowed considerably and does
Okay.
not have a true go forward strategy. The governor's plan that was approved by the Public Authorities Control Board a few weeks back, it was actually a very modest approval. They wanted the whole thing approved. It was not. And now they have a 9-step where you'll have to come in with different building lots and get them approved one by one. And so there's a lot of room for negotiation and for modifications to be made. We still think that's a silly way to proceed. They really should withdraw the plan. It's a bad plan, and the alternatives are far superior. So is it a runaway freight train? No. We haven't lost on the public awareness campaign yet, and that's growing all the time, as evidenced by you having me on this call, which we greatly appreciate.
Well, it was by
But
your
we
op-ed
also
piece.
likely with the approval of the final environmental impact statement. Regrettably, we're probably going to have to get involved with litigation as well. And we actually think if we do that, we will have good chances in this. And the reason we say that is this huge project, which impacts the whole region and involves the gateway tunnels and involves tearing down the
Oh, it
neighborhood.
involves the center of New York City. I
Yeah,
mean, please.
they've cut it into 4 different pieces, and so it's like a game of musical chairs. Like if you're commenting on one chair, they're saying, "Oh, no, you need to be over in this chair or that chair," and then they're building the station before they've even figured out what the tracks should look like. And so there's really they've done this development first and transit later, and both the development plan and transit plans are very dated. They're from the 1950s, not the 2050. So it's still David and Goliath, but they haven't knocked us out, and we aren't
Well, yeah,
going
yes,
away
yeah,
anytime soon.
yeah, there's no question about it. The Moynihan Station is gonna, the renovations done there over there is gonna stay as you know, as it is. I mean,
Well,
you like that?
we think Moynihan, we're net, are there things I would have done differently? Yes, but I would give it a B plus, and some people would
Okay,
think
that's
I'm not
fair.
being charitable. I would say that Michael Evans, the person who had the late Michael Evans, who was lost by suicide, who had a lot to do with that happening and really willed it to happen. It is a great thing, and I give him an A plus.
Well,
But I think what we should learn from that is you can adaptively reuse buildings in the area to great effect, including the Penn Power Station that's on 31st Street, or to even think about, well, why not build a great station across the street? If people really love this, the same way they love Grand Central, they love Grand Central more because it's an even finer building. But why are we talking about keeping people in a subterranean version of today's Port Authority bus terminal and trying to sell them on the fact that it's really nice?
We're almost out of time. I want to ask one more thing, which is sensitive to Bronx people because we've seen this all the time. Because you mentioned environmental impact statements. My experience in covering that and in talking about all those things here in the Bronx is that there's plenty of words you could use. They're baloney. They write stuff in these environmental impact statements that are simply not true. And when you said there's going to be litigation here, that's where you got to go, because whatever environmental impact statement it is, they're almost always designed to push a project forward, not to say this is a reason why we got to be careful.
So
I see you smiling. So I've been around too long.
I'll give you a short answer because I know you're almost out of time, but I quoted our rallies. Martin Luther King said, "A lie cannot last forever." And there are a lot of lies in this project, and we're going to make sure that they all have a short shelf life.
And that's a great a comment to end on, especially for the people of the Bronx, because we listen. I've been covering this stuff for decades, and we've just seen these environmental impact statements. I'm saying you just can't be saying that because it's just not true. Anyway, Sam Turvey, I hope we're going to continue this dialogue. Having you on the program has been a treat, and you'll come back and we'll talk more about Penn Station or other projects that you're involved in.
I am honored by my Bronx roots, and I really appreciate you having me on the show. I love the Bronx. Thank you so much.
Great. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was Sam Turvey. We're going to change gears. We're going to go to my good friend Bob Capstatter, who is a photojournalist. You know him, former editor of the New York Daily News. And so we'll be right back. Don't go away.